Hello. Today we're going to analyze a game with an unusual opening, namely the Beaver Claw, also known as the English opening with the first move pawn to h4. This opening is rarely seen in tournaments, but it can surprise your opponent with an unexpected strategy and lead to some unusual tactical ideas. And we'll see how this opening was handled by the world's strongest chess player, Magnus Carlsen. He played against the Indian Grandmaster Pentala Harikrishna. So, let's get started. Magnus Carlsen plays h4. Harikrishna responds with d5. Then everything proceeds as usual. d4, knight f6, e3, c5, c4, cx d4, ex d4, knight f6, knight f3. And we see that this leads to a typical position from the queen's gambit. The only difference is that white has played the pawn to h4. Next comes e6, knight f3, b7, bd3. Both sides are developing their pieces. Black plays dxc4, forcing white to spend a tempo to move the bishop to c4. Then comes castling b6, a3 to prevent the knight from coming to b4, bb7 and re1. Magnus Carlsen employs the standard plan for playing with an isolated pawn, namely he wants to place the knight on e5, develop the bishop to g5, and transfer the rook along the third rank. In this case, the move h4 might come in handy to push this pawn forward and open up the black king. But then came rc8, a slight x-ray on the bishop, ba2, a6, and Carlsen decides to finally get rid of the isolated pawn. He plays d5 with the pawn. xd5, nxd5, nxd5, bxd5. The position simplifies, and black captures the pawn on h4. But at this moment, Carlsen gains the initiative. He brings his bishop out to f4, and his pieces are much more active. Bishop f6, rc1 attacking the knight moves to a5, bishop takes b7, knight takes b7 and b4, removing the pawn from attack. The queen is won, the rook is won, the rook is won, the rook is won. Of course this position should most likely end in a draw since black has an extra pawn, but it's true, white has a more active rook. And then Harikrishna makes the move bishop b2, allowing the rook to move to c6. He should have played rook to a8. And if black plays rook to c6, they can respond with pawn to b5 and keep their extra pawn. But instead, bishop to b2 was played, rook to c6. And here is the mistake. Harikrishna didn't notice that his knight is not in the best position and has almost no moves. Bishop takes a3, rook takes b6, and the knight is forced to retreat to d8. Then comes a strong move, bishop to d6, attacking the rook and defending the pawn on b4. The rook retreats to e8, rook takes a6, a capture with tempo, and white gets a passed pawn. Black played bishop to b2, white pins with rook to a8, black plays f5, a loft for the king. Next comes bishop to c7, attacking the knight, the bishop moves to f6, and now nothing stops the b-pawn from advancing. It advances to b5, king to f7, b6, knight to b7, and rook to a7. After this move, Harikrishna resigned, since the knight has to move, and then b7 will follow, and after that, b8 with promotion to a queen. So we've seen how the unconventional Beaver Claw opening can lead to an interesting game, allowing players to experiment and develop their tactical skills. Magnus Carlsen used this opening to throw his opponent off their preparation and force them to spend time right from the opening. And his strategy worked. This was King's Move with you. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video.